Hey everyone, I'm Mary Delgado with the Blockchain Herd. Thank you for subscribing to my channel. And Bama is here, my little helper right now, who's saying hello as well. Today I have a very interesting guest. Actually, I have two guests, and they are with BlockBase. And their names are Ricardo Schiller and Diogo Bulha. Ricardo is lead architect and Diogo is lead development. So we're going to start off by having them, yes, I know you really want to talk to them. We're going to talk to them right now. We're going to start off by them telling us all about how they got involved with BlockBase, crypto in general. So why don't we start off with you, Ricardo?
Yeah, thanks, Mary. Thanks for having us. My blockchain story is a little long. So I guess I started in 2015. I stumbled into Bitcoin, read a white paper, did the usual stuff. So started seeing the videos from Andreas Antonopoulos and got really interested with the concept. And then after Bitcoin came Ethereum, very interesting project too. And then by 2017, I guess it's when the first ideas of the project we're talking today about BlockBase started popping up. So everyone was crazy about smart contracts in 2017. And it's kind of made sense, but in many cases, it didn't made a lot of sense. And no one knew what smart contracts would be useful for at that time. So no one found a purpose for that. And the idea of BlockBase started appearing in the concept of, instead of having smart contracts to do anything, we could have like a platform, a blockchain platform to store any type of data, specifically database data, so database transactions. That's the main concept of BlockBase. And so the concept started there to store database transactions on blockchain. And the idea of storing data on blockchain existed in 2017, but it was very domain specific. So storing emails on the blockchain, storing domain names on the blockchain, storing license plates on the blockchain, stuff like that, which kind of didn't make a lot of sense because it was very domain specific. So you would have one blockchain for a specific thing. And it made much more sense to me at the time to have a blockchain that stored all types of data. So not be smart contract focused, but be focused on storing any type of data. That's the main concept of BlockBase. Mm-hmm. So that was 2017. Then we applied for funding, and that's a big story there. We won the funding, and then we started the development of BlockBase in 2018. And now we're here. So it's almost everything is developed right now. So it's good. We're good right now.
Okay, so we're gonna get into BlockBase and the funding and everything else in a minute. And before we do that, let's go on to you, Diogo.
So hi everyone, I'm Diogo. My story with blockchain started a bit later than Ricardo because it started actually when I met Ricardo for the first time, and that was like I think 4 years ago now, and that's mostly how my story started with blockchain. It was with Ricardo telling me about his idea for BlockBase. So this idea has been around for a while, as you can see.
Diogo, really quick, did you already understand crypto at that point? Did you understand blockchain?
At that point, I had heard about Bitcoin, but I wasn't really informed about what it is, what was interesting about the blockchain technology. So at that point, I really didn't know anything about blockchain at all. I didn't even know the name blockchain, just Bitcoin. So yeah. And then when the funding got approved for this project, I joined it as developer for it. Yeah. That's mostly my story simplified.
So Ricardo, how were you able to convince Diogo that the blockchain world is an ever evolving, growing platform, if you will?
Yeah, so before answering that, so 4 years ago, Diogo didn't know the term blockchain, but now it's a superstar blockchain. Yeah, there's a big transformation there. And it didn't require any convincing. So if you've got like, we're technical guys, so we understand computer science and all of that. And if you read it and if you understand it, you don't need any convincing. So it's just falling down a rabbit hole and there's no turning back. You just go deeper and deeper and deeper, and you fall in love with the technology. So I guess that's what happened with Diogo.
Yes.
As it happened with me, of course.
Oh, Ricardo, you made him fall in love, I guess, with the whole concept.
So, yeah.
So BlockBase, who came up with the whole concept of BlockBase then?
Yeah, I guess it was me. So it took a long time. It didn't just pop into my mind. So it took a long time to figure out, and it took a lot of help from Diogo then to straighten out difficult architecture questions, how to make this work, right?
Yeah.
Because the idea, when you think about the idea, is very obvious. So you just want to leverage the concept of a blockchain where you've got the blocks and blocks have transactions. You want to leverage that concept to fill those up with database transactions. And the motivation to do that is if you do it that way, so you store the whole history of everything that happens to database, you've got proof of that. So currently, with all traditional databases, and I can explain this in a very obvious way. So we can talk about the database like an Excel sheet. Okay. So currently, if we think about an Excel sheet, all the configurations you do on the Excel sheet and the records you do and the changes we do, after we save the file, right? So you don't know the history of what happens to all the changes, right? You don't know. You don't have proof of that.
Right.
So when you've got very important information there, you kind of want to have proof of the whole history of what happened there. And that doesn't exist in a way that is really secure. So there are ways to have like a log of operations, stuff like that, but everything is centrally managed. So everything can be centrally corrupted, and it
manipulated, right?
Yeah, and it is, and I've seen it with my own two eyes in a little company. I always tell this story. It's a fantastic story. So like 14 years ago, I worked as an intern in I think it was about that time, as an intern in a very small company that had the database of all the traffic tickets in Lisbon, right? So every time a guy from the company got a ticket, it was magically deleted from the database, right?
Shame, shame, shame.
So you get the idea. So
yeah.
And if this happens in a small level, let's imagine what happens at the government level, at big companies when there's a lot of money involved and political issues and so on. So that can be changed at the moment with regular technology, and blockchain solves that.
Yeah.
So that's the idea behind BlockBase, and it took a long time to figure out exactly how it would work. A lot of research, a lot of meetings, a lot of architecture, and then to explain that, it takes a long while.
Yeah, and it should get really technical.
Okay, yeah, and we don't want technical on here because you'll probably lose me. So I'm trying to have a conversation so you could put it in lay terms, if you will, so I could understand it, and my viewers could understand it as well, because you guys are the more technical side, and we just want to know how to plug and play or press a button and make it work. Yeah. So how does it secure data then? How does BlockBase then secure data?
Okay, so it has a lot of concepts there. So the most important thing that BlockBase does related to securing data is to have the whole history of operations. So let's say that you want, with a traditional database, that you want to make sure that you know exactly how it came about, that the data that's on the database at the moment, on the Excel sheet at the moment, as an analogy, how it came about to have that structure. Does that make sense? What's the history behind that? That provides a lot of information security, because you can change data if you want in your benefit, and no one will find out if you don't have a record of all operations. So like having transitioning that to Bitcoin, for example, if you had all the Bitcoin that everyone owns on an Excel sheet that you controlled, you could go there anytime and change the values. You could just do that, and that doesn't make a lot of sense. So no one would use that technology, and that's why Bitcoin works, because it's on a blockchain. So you can apply the same concept to databases. So the reason it secures everything is exactly because you've got history of all the operations that are done on the databases. So if you've got all the history, you just cannot manipulate the data in your benefit. Because if you try to manipulate the data, that just is another operation that is registered on the blockchain and is recorded on the history of the blockchain to make it true. And you know all the operations that are done. So you cannot like put it in a specific state of information that benefits you for a moment, or you cannot hide it, something that happens. You cannot, like, for example, in accounting, you cannot, let's say you've got an audit coming to your accounting, right? You cannot change the values on the night before. It doesn't work like that with blockchain. With an Excel sheet or with your accounting software, perhaps you can, if you've got everything set up that way. With blockchain, you cannot do that.
Because as I understand, blockchain, once it's on the blockchain, it can't be changed. You can't go back and change the coding or the I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? The
history.
Yeah, you can't change the history of it, right?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. You can't change the history. So, for example, let's say you want to update a field on your Excel sheet as an analogy, right? So you go there, you update it, and you save. And the value that was there before disappeared. You don't know what was there, right? On BlockBase, what happens is you add a record to the blockchain that states, update this field here with this value, right? But so you've got the record of updating that field. And if you update it again, you've got another record updating again. So you've got the history of all updates, of all inserts, of everything. So you've got the history of the whole history of the database. So the structuring, like structuring the Excel sheet, putting all the columns, adding everything, and then all the records and all the changes and all the deletes, you've got the history of everything. So you can like play everything again. And if you play everything again from the first block to the current block, you reach the current state of the database, right? So that's the concept.
So, you know, in thinking about, you know, it's election season here in the United States, right? I'm thinking about voting. Do you see where we may in the future be able to do voting on the blockchain?
That's a question that's asked a lot in our community, in the blockchain community, and I think it's a really complex question because there are multiple studies that show that voting digitally is still a big danger, and yes, certainly blockchain can help. I think it really can help somewhat solve that, and that's something that a lot of people have been looking into, and I'm sure someone will come with a good solution for it, because it's not just about storing data, and storing data, that's our thing. If it's about storing data, I think anyone can use BlockBase right now, but for voting, it's more than just storing data. There's a lot of complex problems to solve there.
Right.
It's all about identity and stuff like that. So yes, right. But I think that blockchain can help solve it. Yes.
Well, I think about if BlockBase is about storing data, then would you be able to store like IDs, like driver's license, and you know, different things like that? Could BlockBase be utilized for those types of things where, you know, you have the person's ID and then maybe, you know, you compare the voting registration with the person's ID to make sure those two things match, and then that person, I guess, would,
yes,
I don't know,
certainly, yes. That's a possibility, yes, without a doubt.
I might have just created something for you.
Yeah. So what Diogo was talking about is something that it's a good observation. So the main problem with voting that blockchain doesn't solve out of the box is the identity of who's voting, right? So, but you answered also you gave a very interesting proposition there, Mary, because if you've got the IDs of everyone stored on the blockchain, then you can compare them. You can say, okay, at least those who are stored here on the blockchain, those can vote. Okay, so that type of structuring you can do on BlockBase perfectly. So it's just two tables, two Excel sheets, right? One for votes, one for users, and you could do that on an afternoon and you have the system ready. Yeah, but that's not the whole concept behind voting. So it's much more complex.
Voting has a lot of other problems.
That's us. I guess I'm a developer now. What? No, I'm just kidding. But that's just, me thinking out loud and what BlockBase is. I think about BlockBase also like a Google Cloud or Amazon Cloud where they store data, and that's, pretty much kind of what BlockBase is. Would you agree?
Yes, except in our case it's decentralized. That's the main difference.
Right, and you're very secure, as we just talked about, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you look at the Google Cloud or Amazon Cloud, so on, we provide the same service as a cloud, but a decentralized cloud. So you can issue a database that has all the benefits of being stored on blockchain, similarly to what you would do on a cloud service. You go there, you hit a few buttons, and you've got the database for you. We provide the same service, but in a slightly more complex way because it's harder to configure, but in a distributed fashion. So yeah, you can see it as a distributed cloud service for databases.
Okay, so you talked a little bit about funding, and I think you said that happened in 2018. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. So how was it funded? How did you go out and do like crowdfunding, or how did that occur?
Yeah. So the way we got the funding was through an European program for R&D funding in Europe that has a branch for Portugal called the Portugal 2020. And the way you get funding for that is you have to submit a document that is very lengthy document, about 100 pages, where you have to explain everything in detail that you want to do. So there was a lot of research for that, and we deep dived into the heart of computer security to try to figure out what exactly would BlockBase offer, what problems would BlockBase solve, because you start with the idea, yeah, let's put databases on blockchain, but now let's see if this fits with the current problems of computer security. So we can write this document to apply for funding. And when we started researching that, we found out that everything just fit into place. It really matched the current problems of computer security. So we wrote the document, we applied for funding, and we won. Yeah. And it's really hard. Yeah. And it's hard to get funding.
Yes.
It's like 5% of the projects get funding.
Right. So congratulations to you.
Thank you. Yeah, and it also gave us, like, how'd you say, it gave us a clear picture that we were on track of something that made sense. Like the ideas were right, because it has to be peer reviewed and stuff like that.
Yeah, you were on the right path for sure. You were showing them that what you were creating had a lot of validity, right? So Diogo, I know that in order to run the BlockBase software, you have to have BlockBase nodes, from what I understand. Could you explain that a little bit?
So for running a BlockBase database, we need a group of people that we're calling the providers. So they'll be running the nodes, the BlockBase nodes in their machines, and providing the service for a requester. And this requester is the person or the machine that will request a new database. So they'll also run a node in their machines, and then request, I want a database for storing people, and then the providers will all see, oh, there's a requester here that wants a database. So I'll, from what I see, and it makes sense for me to provide for him, and that's what they'll do.
Okay.
And everyone will start to join that chain and start building upon it.
Okay.
So that's the basic way to explain it. Yeah.
Now within the service and the space, are you limiting space by user on how much space they could use?
No, that's all going to be decided by the market, so to say. So a requester, let's say a requester is asking for a database that is expecting it to grow in size like 1,000 megabytes per month, let's say. The providers will look at it and will see how much he's paying for that database, and will try to see if it makes sense for them to build that database.
Okay.
So if it does, if they see the payments make sense for them, they'll join, and then they'll start building it as well. But if they see that it doesn't make sense for them, they can just choose to not build that chain.
Okay.
So we're expecting the market to control how everything works.
Okay. So Ricardo, and talking about paying, like what kind of payments do you accept then to utilize your service?
It's not, in fact, it's not our service. It's provided by the network. So if you wanted to be a provider, you could download the code today and run it as a provider. And as Diogo was explaining it, and it's really complicated. It's hard to try to explain it really clearly and in a simple fashion, because it has a lot of little details. But the concept is you run as a provider the node, and you will specify what makes economic sense for you to provide as a service, because you will be storing blockchains on your node, on your infrastructure, and that has a cost, right? So the ones who are requesting those blockchains to store their data, and we are talking about multiple blockchains here, and we haven't addressed that question here on the talk. We're getting ahead of ourselves. It has a lot of stuff. So
because I'm so excited, I'm just trying to get ahead.
But we can talk about that specifically.
Right.
So a provider is on the network, and he has a set of rules that say what he wants to provide, and those rules are very easy to comprehend. So I'll be storing blockchains. Those blockchains have an impact on storage. I need a reward per block, and that is paid in the BBT token, the BlockBase token. And if the size per block is over the threshold I'm willing to accept for a specific payment, then I won't participate on those blockchains. So it's like a market. It's free market. So let's say you wanted to issue a blockchain for you to store your data there. If you paid very well for that blockchain, every node would want to participate on your blockchain, right? If you paid very little, then no one would like to participate, and no one would join to participate on building your blockchain. So that's how the market economy works.
So Ricardo, if I'm understanding then right, then it's up to the user to decide the payment?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Yeah, and it's not one blockchain. So in fact, BlockBase needs a main chain, and currently it's EOS main chain. Yeah. And then what it does, in fact, is create mini blockchains that we call sidechains. And it can have not as many as we want. We did the math for that, but currently at the best possible situation would be 100,000 sidechains simultaneously to the EOS main chain. So you have these little sidechains, and they serve specific purposes. So let's say you want a sidechain for you to store your databases there. You would request a sidechain for you for the network, and the providers would see how much in BBT you wanted to pay per block, and would look at the block size you were announcing. This is the block size, these are the block times, this is the amount of BBT I want to pay per block, and they would decide if they wanted to join your network. You also specify how many providers you want. So you can have 3 providers or 10 or 20. You can go crazy and ask for 100. Currently, there are not 100 in our network, but yeah. It's
Well,
23.
how many do you
if
have
I'm-
right now? How many do you have currently?
We
I
have
think
a bit over 20 providers right now in our network. Yes.
You just started though.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, it's 20 teams. It's 20 teams running our code from around the
Yes.
world. And if you issued the sidechain for you right now, if it was economically viable for them, like interesting for them to participate, they would start building your sidechain.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, you just started, so I mean, 20 is a really good number for just starting. You haven't launched, you know, in that much time. So, what are your users, these provider? What are they mainly doing? What are they mainly storing within your service?
So right now they're storing a sidechain we're using for testing purposes. So
Okay.
so they're helping us develop the software, iron out the bugs that's remain, and mostly just being the first people to try the technology and see that it works. Yes.
How close are you? Would you think?
So it's hard to give a deadline to well the node software is out there, it's usable, it's working. So right now we're just ironing out stuff and looking for people to use our software and trying to spread the word and explain how it works, why it's useful for people to use it, and see if it grows from here.
How do you what's the 2-minute explanation? If I wanted to explain what BlockBase is all about, what's the 2-minute drill of me telling people like me what BlockBase is all about in easy terms?
It's all about secure data.
Hey, you know what? That might be a tagline. That might be a tagline. It's all about secure data.
I think we have a tagline like that.
Already. So give me the 2-minute explanation.
It really depends on who we are talking to. If you're if you're a dApp developer that's using EOS, for example, I would the 10-second tagline would be, hey, how much are you paying in resources on EOS to store your 1,000 records? Go to BlockBase and you pay much less for that and have much more scalability.
Yes.
So that would be a tagline.
Okay.
To a big company would be, so you want to be ahead of the curve and have your data provenly stored on a blockchain instead of a regular database, and have like a proof of data to show to your clients, your partners, so on. You can use blockchain for that. The pitch for a regular user, it's harder because this is like a tech thing.
Yes.
The tech thing, right? It's something that you pitch to tech people, I guess. So so it's harder to explain. It's
right.
It's what it is.
I mean, I'm someone who doesn't know, technology and development and all that stuff like that, and I kind of am getting the concept, because what I like to do is I like comparing it to the physical world of what we have today. So that's how I could kind of understand a lot of these projects that are popping up. One of them being BlockBase. So I like to compare.
For a regular user, you could say that the difference for them is knowing that the data is being stored in a blockchain. As long as they know that blockchain is a secure technology that involves being unable to change history, if they understand it and they know that the data is being stored in the blockchain, then that makes a difference for a regular user. I think that's the main thing to take from it. Yeah.
So an individual like me, let's say I wanted to store important documents or pictures or whatever I have that's of importance to me, would I be able to do that, and how much space would I have, and how secure would I feel? Because let's face it, and some of these the Amazon clouds and all those places, you can break into those places and take your identity, if you will. So would I be able to then utilize BlockBase and then feel like it's really secure?
So that requires to talk about another component of BlockBase, unfortunately. So, or fortunately, because we're here to talk about that, but it gets complicated. So what we talked about is BlockBase offers this proof of history of changes, right?
Mm-hmm.
But let's say you put there your personal data that you do not want to be leaked, right? So if it's on a blockchain, and if you've got nodes around the world storing that data is really public, right? So BlockBase has a component for cryptographically encrypting everything. So everything can be completely transparent if you so wish, or completely encrypted. So it would be fully encrypted, and only you would hold the keys for that. And this gets more complicated than that because it's designed specifically, it's tailored for big businesses. Usually big businesses, their databases are not encrypted in any sense or fashion. Usually there's always an admin that has full access to the database and can see stuff that he shouldn't, besides deleting data and so on.
Right.
So all the data that goes through BlockBase is encrypted, in fact, by default. You have to say, I want this decrypted for everything that you want to put there. You have to say, this is decrypted, this is decrypted, this is decrypted, because everything is encrypted by default.
Wow.
So yeah, so it's a pretty good way to store your data.
Yeah, I mean, I like that. If it's encrypted and I have the ability to decide what I want encrypted, I think that's very valuable because it makes me feel safer in knowing that a lot of my information is encrypted and it won't, if it's leaked out there, it's encrypted, so you can't really see it.
Yeah, that's the whole goal. In our case, it served. So encrypting stuff is always good. In our case, having that functionality was mandatory. So if you offer a service to store databases that are stored in a distributed fashion, you do have to encrypt the data. Otherwise, it just doesn't make sense. It's like how's the word? It's a no-go, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, it's perfect. You have all the track of all the changes, but then is the data, like people can see the data? If that were the case, then no one would even consider using it.
Right.
So everything is encrypted by default.
So what about banks? Would banks then, be, I guess, a business that would make sense for BlockBase?
So it really depends. There are so many use cases you can apply to this. It's almost would this specific business require using a technology that gives full encryption from the start and full history from the start? Yeah, I guess so. You can apply it to many use cases. And currently, all these different businesses use just traditional databases. But we envision that in the future, this will change. So, and it will probably come from regulation by governments. Governments will start saying, hey, this type of stuff has to be on blockchain. I'm sorry, it has to be on blockchain because we want to ensure its authenticity, its proof, etc. And there are some governments that are completely full on that already. Like, for example, Estonia, their whole government is on blockchain years ago. It's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
No one knows about that, but
I did not know about that.
Yeah, I found out about that like this year. So it's crazy, and that change will happen here in Portugal. We're starting to see like the government push the blockchain a little bit, little by little, and then companies will start to adopt because it's required, and then perhaps companies will start to compete. Because let's say if your accounting is not on blockchain, then you can be considered like not a trustworthy company or whatever, right?
Right. How do you think that BlockBase is going to solve scalability?
That's so that's an awesome question. We talked a little bit about that already. So I don't know if Diogo would like to answer this.
I would be repeating a bit about what you said, but the main way we solve scalability is by doing multiple blockchains. So we don't have one single main blockchain. We're doing lots and lots and lots of sidechains, each one storing the relevant data. And since we're doing that kind of scalability by growing the number of blockchains we're using, it's pretty much endless, because while right now we're using just one single main chain, that's the EOS main chain, in the future we can grow up to use multiple main chains and have those main chains communicate with each other. So that's the way we're looking into scalability in the future.
Now, how many employees, if you will, do you have working with within BlockBase?
Yeah, so the team working in BlockBase is in flux. Many people have worked in BlockBase along the last 2 years, solving different problems. We had even one colleague of us doing his master thesis on the security part, for example. Wow. Currently, the team is smaller than it was, because so we're kind of finishing the development, at least for what we set up to do.
Wow.
Diogo was saying, yeah, we have more. We don't know exactly when this ends, because we don't, because we can always add more stuff. But so it's working at the moment. Software, it's not vaporware. It's working, right? So you can download the node right now. You can issue a sidechain for you right now. You can put your databases there right now, and it's fully encrypted, and you can be a provider too, to check. Like, you can be a provider for your own node that's requesting the sidechains, and you can check the data encrypted, and you can query it, and so on. So we're kind of polishing the software right now. Having said that, we have big plans for the future, but those are undisclosed still. And we are currently talking, like refining how those will work. And I'm very, very excited for those. Very, very excited. But unfortunately, I cannot disclose them at the moment.
Oh, you can't. Listen, this will be between you, me, and Diogo. I think that you should go ahead and just give us a little nugget of information right here, so everyone could just be as excited as you are, right? It's only fair.
I really can't. I would love to. I really
just
can't.
a little hint, a little hint, like something that you're not really disclosing, but you're giving a little hint.
Well, a little hint is more people will get involved with BlockBase soon.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I'm good with that. You gave me a little nugget, and that was good enough for me to like hang on and be like, oh, I want more. That's super exciting, because, you know, like I said, you know, from the time that you got your funding to now putting it together, getting together with Diogo, getting more people within the community, you really have come a long way, and it's super exciting.
Yes,
it is. It is. We went through a lot of things, a lot of tears, a lot of nights, and it finally came together, and it's really great to see it work. And Diogo is so incredible in fine tuning the system. So now we're trying to. When you get to a situation, because we have a private channel where all the providers are there, and at the beginning we had a little bit of bugs, and they said, hey, it crashed for me, it did this, I don't understand that. Now we're at the point where the providers, when they say it crashed for me, it's like almost always the mistake they did, they configured it badly, they didn't do something on their side. So it's very, it's wonderful for us to see the technology work to a point where sometimes the channel is silent because people are not complaining. It's just working, right?
Right. But I mean, to go back to your talking about, you know, it crashing, you got to start somewhere. And I don't know. I just think my mind goes in different places. But I think about when they make cars, right? When they make cars, they go through those crash tests where they have the dummy in the car, and then the car crashes, and they do that to test it to make sure that it's working. So yeah, you're going to have that, but the important part is fixing it, right? Having it crash and fixing it, making it work. It's good, because you want your end user to have something that really works. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, it would be impossible to have it like perfect from the start. it took a lot of team effort. It took a lot of contribution from the providers, showing us their logs, because all the nodes log everything. It took a lot of work and dedication from Diogo because it's a very complex system, to fine tune everything, and it just gets better and better and better. And yeah, so at the moment we're really just making it faster, right? Making it even more scalable and so on. And yeah,
and also listening for the suggestions from our providers. So since they're using the software, they say, oh, this would be useful. I'd like this change in the software. And since we're listening to them, we're applying those changes right now as we speak.
So if you had to shake like a crystal ball, Diogo, where would you see yourself, like, let's say a year from now? Where do you see the project in a year from now?
I have honestly no idea, but I'd love it to be a success, yes.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I mean, I see it going in that direction. You, Ricardo?
Yeah, so I definitely want to see BlockBase succeed. These have been a lot of years and dedication behind it. It's a project that is hard to understand. So we sometimes see like projects that sometimes don't make a lot of sense get a lot of attention. There are some DeFi things that are completely crazy out there and don't make sense, and people like burn their money there and get a lot of attention. But my opinion, my personal opinion, and not only from me, of course, it's that it makes sense. But since it's an infrastructure stuff, and since blockchain adoption is slow, so mostly speculation at the moment, so people trying to make a buck, so on, adoption is slow. But I really think that we have something that doesn't have any competition at the moment. So there's nothing that offers something that's equal to what we offer in any aspect. Nothing is tailored specifically for databases. Nothing has full encryption built on top of it from the start, and nothing is as scalable as we built it. We did the math, and we can run, if EOS just ran BlockBase, it could run 100,000 sidechains simultaneously. So that would store immense quantities of data on blockchain. And yeah, blockchain is something that usually doesn't scale. So if you wanted to use EOS to store databases directly there, you'll fall into a scalability threshold really quickly. Although it's a very quick blockchain, right? Much quicker than Bitcoin and much cheaper and quicker than Ethereum, incomparably cheaper and quicker than Ethereum. Even having said that, it has a scalability threshold, a small one. If you put sidechains to that, and I didn't mention this little detail, but it's very important. So all the blocks from all the sidechains have their block headers pegged on the main chain. So you've got the security from the main chain, like securing all the side chains. So you can scale traditional blockchain like EOS a lot. You can scale it like 1,000x, or I don't know, 100,000x. I don't know. You can really scale it from there. And we are looking for adoption. Like, people should start using this, because it doesn't make sense to store all the data on traditional databases or fully on blockchain, because it gets very costly to do that. Yeah. Also on EOS.
So obviously you're looking for mass adoption, like what you were saying, and you are providing a great service for people with a lot of security. I think it sounds to me, from what you were explaining to me, that this is something that that absolutely people need to use from what you're saying to me, because it provides so much, right?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. So I think we're close to get that going.
Mm-hmm. Okay, you're trying to tell me something?
Yeah. But
That's okay. Here, whisper in my ear. Go ahead.
I can't repeat it, but yeah, let's hope so. Yeah, let's hope so.
Yeah. I mean, I think, you guys are providing something that's needed out there, like what I said, and it's just getting the word out there so people could understand it. And it's like everything else, once you get started, if you don't understand it, then people are less likely to go to it. But as you go out there, you're more in the community, you're working with a lot of providers, and it's proof of concept, then you're going to get a lot more people on board, obviously.
Yeah, agreed.
Yep. So I'm going to ask both of you this question, because I always ask everyone this question. And I'll start off with you, Diogo. If you had to ask yourself a question, what would that question be?
So
That's a good question.
Yeah. So I think it's mainly making people understand that traditional databases are easily manipulated. So that's not something that most people are aware of. And then trying to make them understand that blockchain is really it's impossible to change history. So that's the main gain from having blockchain, and the main gain from having some data, the important data stored in blockchain, and I think that's the main thing that we must make people understand, that's the main gain from using blockchain.
Yes. Okay. See, you asked yourself a really good question there. All right, Ricardo.
Oh, it's easy. I know the question, right? So it's easy. I had time, because it's a hard question if you're not prepared. Right. How can I start using BlockBase today? So that would be the question that I would love people to be asking me every day. Mm-hmm. And it's download the code and run it.
Yes. Well, that's an easy answer right there. So how could you start using BlockBase today? Download it. Download it. Start using it. Go in there, because the more you get people to use it, the more you'll figure out, what you can add to it. So are you going to add anything else to BlockBase that you don't already offer maybe in the future?
That's a very good question. And we've talked about that sometimes. So having a smart contract layer would be interesting, possibly. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have that. Mm-hmm. We wouldn't need it if you could access it directly through a smart contract in EOS. Mm-hmm. But you don't have that at the moment. You really don't. Mm-hmm. So that would be interesting. Mm-hmm. And a very, very interesting thing we've talked about is the possibility of having, because we have this main chain with sidechains. So we've got one level of scalability. It's one. What if it could be like X amount of levels of scalability? So each one of these sidechains would have any amount of sidechains packed to that. So it gets a little nutty, but you can imagine the concept like it. Mm-hmm. What if one sidechain could have a lot of sidechains packed to it, and those sidechains have a lot of sidechains packed to it, and so on. So instead of having 100,000 sidechain scalability, you would have infinite
number. Yeah. I mean, that's as you grow. That's what's going to happen. Is you're going to get more things that you come up with, concept that you come up with, and it's going to add to BlockBase. So I'm super excited for what both of you are doing for BlockBase and what you're providing out there with the scalability and the growth and the security that you are providing. And I'm going to provide my viewers links on how they can download BlockBase and use it. And also I'm going to have links to where you can be, where people can get in touch with you. I believe you're on Twitter and on Telegram, and you have your website. You have a website as well, correct?
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. So, again, are you currently looking for developers or anything like that?
We can talk about that later, perhaps.
Oh, I might have given another little nugget. Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Is there anything else that I might have missed that that you want to discuss?
We covered a lot of stuff, very interesting stuff.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
if please don't turn the button on, because you can go crazy again for another hour.
Well, you know, like I told you guys, you know, this Cuban girl knows how to keep talking, so we could be talking for hours, that's for sure. And I know you guys are in Portugal and you guys are that way as well. But anyway, I want to say thank you so very much to the both of you for spending some time to talk to me about BlockBase. I hope that I can get the word out good for you, and that people will want to learn more about BlockBase and what you have to offer. Keep pushing along, keep plugging along, and I know you're going to be successful.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank you,
having
Mary.
us.
Thank you
very much.
And as always, I want to say thank you to my viewers for subscribing to my channel. Ask you to like, subscribe, and share these videos. Get the word out on BlockBase. And as always, you heard it here on the Blockchain Herd.